You don't need to learn how to lucid dream. You need to remember. A lucid dream is a dream in which you're actively aware of the fact you're dreaming as the dream is happening. So you're in a dream, sound asleep, but you go, no way, this is all a dream. That's a lucid dream. Lucid dreaming absolutely allows you to practice self-inception.
Charlie Morley, one of the world's leading lucid dream experts. This man is going to show you how to get everything you want out of life using just your dreams.
In a lucid dream, you are conscious within the unconscious mind, a place where you can then plant or incept an idea that will have radical changes in your waking state consciousness.
Best-selling author and also having spent 7 years inside of a Buddhist center to better understand himself, we are going to go over how to manifest using your dreams, how to have OBEs, whether or not time is real, all of the crazy things you can get up to inside of your dreams, and how exactly to get lucid in your dreams tonight. So this one is a banger, as they all are. Charlie is an amazing individual. We are going to do more on this, but right here you have a masterclass on how to lucid dream and what you can get out of it. You guys are going to benefit like crazy. Leave us a like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys on the jump. Enjoy the podcast.
Way of Will John.
Charlie, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. We have a lot to go through. I know we'll bounce around a little bit, and I know some people are probably familiar with you, lucid dreaming, all sorts of other things that you are into. But why don't you kick us your version of your intro, so we can go from there.
Yeah. So essentially, I help people use their dreams and sleep for psychological and spiritual growth. So my main thing is teaching people how to lucid dream. So I've written a few books about it. I've been running workshops for the last 15 years, teaching people the ability to induce lucid dreams at will. So that's kind of a big part of my work. Another part of my work is shadow integration. So the new book actually coming out next year is called Do the Shadow Work. This is because once you start looking at your dreams, especially through lucid dreaming, actually gaining conscious access to the unconscious, you encounter the shadow. There is no way you can be a lucid dreamer and not a shadow worker. They come like hand in hand. So the lucid dreaming came first, then movement to the shadow work, and then the shadow work led into trauma. And then for the last 6 or 7 years, big part of my work now has been helping or working with traumatized populations, especially military veterans, both in the US, the UK and Europe, using sometimes the lucid dreaming practices, sometimes other sleep and dream practices to help with the integration of trauma. So yeah, write books about sleep and dream and then travel around and give workshops about them.
So yes, as someone who went through the process of course, really understanding that dreams have immense power. I've had a whole host of precognitive dreams. I had to teach myself how to become a lucid dreamer, right? So in front of me sit books from Stephen LaBerge, some of the more famous, more let's say, pop style lucid dream books. I can't see the author there. And, I had an interesting run up to it. So I actually came, which I don't know, you would be able to tell me if it's normal. I was having out-of-body experiences from a young age. In my teenage years, I didn't know what they were. In my late 20s, I kind of discovered what that was, and that sent me on a path, kind of a training path of like, can you do this for real? At first, I didn't even believe it was real. Whatever real is, in my head. And that led me to, of course, lucid dreaming and, Stephen LaBerge and all these other, great guys. I think Robert Wagner, I read Robert Wagner's book. And so, it's a practice, and it's something that, just like you said, it's incredible what you can get from it. So let's start there. I want to give people just a few minutes of the initial understanding of what it means to be lucid in a dream. And then we'll immediately go and go into how one can do it, and then the benefits of that, because I think you've already touched on them. So why don't you explain what a lucid dream is and how we can first have one?
Yeah, brilliant. So really important to do this definition, because a lot of people still nowadays, actually, when you talk about lucid dreaming, they believe you're talking about vivid dreaming. So, my dream was really lucid. And they're often mean kind of really colorful, really vivid. So really, we should call it conscious dreaming rather than lucid dreaming, because then the term is more direct. But lucid dreaming is the term we have. So a lucid dream is any dream in which you're consciously aware of the fact that you're dreaming as the dream is happening. So if you ever had the experience of being sound asleep in your bed, in a dream, and within the dream, self-reflective awareness, what we can call it self-reflective awareness, becomes reactivated. So you're asleep in the dream and you're going, oh shit, I'm in a dream right now. Wow, this is so cool. I can choose what to do. I can fly. I can have sex with movie stars. Okay, you do all that stuff. But now I can do my spiritual practice. Now I can integrate my trauma. Now I can face my fear and transform my nightmares. Now I can treat anything within me that I could treat with hypnotherapy through the lucid dream state. Because once you're lucid, you are conscious within the unconscious mind, which is similar to a state of hypnotherapeutic trance. And in the same way as a hypnotherapist might guide you into the subconscious and plant a seed of healing intent, which will then manifest in the conscious mind, leading to a changed behavior. That's how hypnotherapy works, essentially. In a lucid dream, you're doing the same. But rather than planting the seed of intent in the subconscious, you're going all the way down to the unconscious mind, right to the bottom of the iceberg, simply because you can't get more unconscious than asleep. So the depth to which you can enter the unconscious through lucid dreaming is unparalleled. You're very hard to get deeper than the lucid dream state. So it's less accessible than things like hypnotherapy and other ways to access the unconscious, like psychedelics and trance and all this stuff. But once you get there, it's super deep. And the changes you can make are profound. So people who are listening or watching and thinking, oh, have I ever had a lucid dream? Any dream, whether it was a happy dream, a sad dream, a nightmare, whatever, any dream where you went, whoa, I'm in a dream right now, that was a lucid dream. And actually, just one more thing, mentioning the nightmare thing. You know, maybe people listening or watching are like, oh, I've never had that experience, or at least I can't remember having the experience. What I often then, the kind of follow-up question I give is, have you ever had a nightmare where in the nightmare you've been like, whoa, I've got to wake up, wake up. Because if you had, that was a lucid dream. You know, once you acknowledge that you could wake up, you could acknowledge that you were asleep. So a big thing I always tell people to do is, if you are lucky enough to get lucid within a nightmare, don't wake yourself up. Because every time you wake yourself from the nightmare, the unintegrated trauma or emotional energy that created that nightmare remains unintegrated. And this is why our nightmares tend to recur.
TheWayOfWillJohn.com. Exclusive content and programs on manifestation, making money, hidden knowledge. Finally, reach your full potential.
So, if you do get lucid in a nightmare, if you can, I know it's a difficult ask, but if you can, see if you can intentionally stay in the nightmare and just witness the fear, the trauma, whatever it might be playing out. Because if you can do that just once, we've got hard scientific studies, good science, that shows you can integrate those nightmares and actually lead to the cessation of the nightmares in one go.
Wow. You know, that's something I've never, I used to have a recurring dream while I was younger that dealt with these lions and animals and, you know, stuff like this. And oddly enough, I was having nightmares as a kid, you know, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, something like this. And I remember my mother, who was very spiritually inclined, mentioned, you know, you can kind of turn things against them, this nightmare, you know. I know exactly. So what ended up happening, I've never actually told this story, at least I don't recall having done so. I was 10, 11, 12, like I said, in a circus, running away from some bad guys. I remember what my mom said. I turned around in the dream. I realized I was dreaming. I turned around. I shot a rocket launcher at them. I turned into the rocket that got shot out of the rocket launcher and started chasing them. Yeah, I turned into it first person and started chasing them. And so that was an interesting experience. I obviously didn't recognize that as a lucid dream. She said you could do this thing, and it had been happening. And so I did it, right? And so
dude, that's such a good example. That's like the perfect example. Okay. And also, like, bless your mom for knowing lucid dreaming. And it's such a good example for anyone listening who's got kids. Exactly what your mom said. You don't need to mention lucid dreaming. Just say, you know that you could actually change that dream, because the child's mind is so pliable. And also, children naturally lucid dream. So at that time, whether you remember it or not, you probably were having regular lucid dreams. Most children do. Not every child every night. But we know from 2 Harvard studies, actually, that lucid dreaming is a natural phenomenon of childhood. So your mom gave you that instruction. You were able to get lucid in the nightmare. And, okay, you'll see, like, a lot of stuff I teach about is like kind of hugging your demons in the lucid dream and sending them love and stuff like that. Okay, eventually. But actually, as a kid, very good advice is take affirmative action. Nightmares hurt us not just because of the trauma they might be representing, but because they're so disempowering. We're often the ones being chased. We're the ones being attacked. We're the ones in fear. So if you can turn that around and chase it And the fact that you became the missile or the rocket, you said, super cool. Like, I'm having a field day with that.
Totally. It was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed it, and I never had that dream again. So at least in that aspect, it was done. But to turn it back, so I remember in my journey how difficult it was, and I've gone through times in my life when dreams were easy to remember and times when they were not. And after reading so much and studying so much, creating a dream journal and, putting intention behind actually wanting to remember my dreams was the first step. Could you give us, just someone who's heard this, maybe they remember their dreams sometimes and not, how they can get going down the path of training to do this well?
Sure thing. So what I call the first kind of setup I have for newbie lucid dreamers, what I call the 4 Ds. And you've talked about 1D already, which is dream recall and kind of dream diary. So the first D I'd talk about is called dream planning. And this is essentially deciding what you want to do in your first or next lucid dream. The why is more important than the how. So get your why down. Like if you're listening to this, think like, why do I want a lucid dream? Oh, he mentioned like integration of trauma, or he mentioned having sex with movie stars, or, no judgment, whatever. But decide what you want to do in your lucid dream. Maybe healing the inner child, maybe doing a spiritual practice, maybe anything you could treat through hypnotherapy, you can treat through lucid dreaming. So you could make a decision out of one of those qualities, but choose what you want to do. The second D, exactly as you mentioned, dream recall. So the first thing with this is to let people know that they are dreaming. There's still a lot of people around today who I often get it on kind of Instagram posts. People say, I don't dream. And what they really mean, almost certainly, is I don't remember my dreams. Because it's almost impossible to stop the human brain from dreaming. Only really a stroke or a heavy head injury, like traumatic brain injury, those will cause like a cessation in dreaming, but just for a couple of weeks. So the brain networks actually rewire themselves and you start dreaming again. Because dreaming is so important to us. You take someone's dreams from them, they move into psychosis very quickly. So almost certainly you are dreaming every night. That's the first barrier to remove. The second thing is if you don't regularly remember your dreams, as some people listening or watching this might be thinking, when did you last try? And if you think you don't dream, why would you bother trying, right? So the second thing to do is quite simple. As you fall asleep tonight, you'll pass through a state called the hypnagogic state. This is like a natural state of hypnosis. You see from the root of the word, it's similar. And the mind becomes highly suggestible. So as you're in this kind of falling asleep state, but before you black out, harness that kind of hypnotic trance to remember your dreams. So essentially fall asleep saying something like, tonight I remember my dreams, I have excellent dream recall. Present tense affirmative. Tonight I remember my dreams, I have excellent dream recall. You fall asleep doing that, very good chance you're going to remember your dreams in the morning. Leading to that third D, dream diaries. So whatever you remember in the morning or even the middle of the night, take some time to note it down. Like write it in your phone or write it in a notebook or something like that. The reason we write it isn't so much for dream interpretation, although that can be super cool. It's just a slightly different cup of tea. The reason for lucid dreaming we write down our dreams is to spot patterns. So let's say you're writing down your dreams for like a week. And the end of the week, the fourth D, dream signs, I'd ask you to look back over your dream diary and see if you can spot any patterns, like stuff that only happens in your dreams. So you're like, oh yeah, I dreamt of my dead grandma. I dreamt of like being back in the house I used to live as a kid. I dreamt about being back at school. I dreamt of zombie apocalypses, whatever. Stuff that can only happen in your dreams. And those are called dream signs. Dream signs are any aspect of the dream that can indicate to you that you're dreaming. By keeping the dream diary, you start to acknowledge those, being like, oh, whoa, I've got a recurring dream sign. I always dream of zombies. Or like, I often dream of my dead grandma. Now, once you do that, you're creating this trigger. You're associating dead grandmother with dreaming. You're making that association. And once you can make that association strong enough, eventually you'll be in the dream, your dead grandma will appear. And it's really weird when it first happens. You have a sense of like deja vu in the dream. You have this sense of like, dead grandma, like, what is this reminding me of? What is, whoa, dead grandma, that's my dream sign. I'm lucid. And you can have a lucid dream. There are like dozens of other techniques, right? But those 4 are pretty good kind of early steps.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I will give you just a very, very brief description of how I essentially learned my obviously Carlos Castaneda, who he is. Yes, The Art of Dreaming. And so he has a whole host of books. I think he does have the book, The Art of Dreaming is the name of it. I think it's right here in front of me as well. there's a discussion on the hands, on your hands and your fingers, right? And what I found to be true is, yes, of course, when you do look at your hands in a dream, they also do tend to morph. They're kind of strange, right? And stuff like this. And so I read that, and immediately I understood dream signs. And so I set up a way of just me kind of, I think I wanted to say I started once an hour looking at my hands and just being like, am I dreaming? And really, really studying the lines and trying to see and just really taking it in. Not, one of the best words of advice I've had, and I've had discussions with other lucid dreamers as well, is when you do your dream sign, once you do kind of recognize it, and obviously you haven't touched on this, but I know you know about it and can. If you have a dream sign, or if you have something that you're checking, reality checks, as I think some people like to call them, don't just look at your hand and go, okay, I'm not dreaming. Because then you'll kind of just do that, in your dream. You'll be like, yeah, I'm probably not dreaming. And so you have to really dig in and get that awareness and bring that consciousness into the now and say, like, is that my finger? Is that the marks that I have? I have calluses because I do pull-ups. And you really look at it. And then in your dream, it actually is so funny, because then when it's my dream, I would get so intent in here in the waking life that in the dream, I would immediately go, oh, I'm clearly dreaming. I would just be like, this is a dream. So that's how I induced a lot of my first dreams. And I know you're probably going to touch on, so say someone does get there, man, the excitement that you get, the amount of times I woke up immediately.
That's classic. Yeah, because you're just like,
boom.
Yeah, because you think it's going to be like a movie, right? Like in the movies when they show a dream sequence and they go to like soft focus and they do like dry ice and smoke. That's bullshit. You get lucid in a dream, it's like going from normal HD to like, boom, like super 4K HD or whatever it is, like it's so bright. And because it's so clear, it's shocking. It's shockingly exciting. So for most people, their first few lucid dreams last, like, as you say, like 5 seconds. You're like, I'm dreaming. Whoa, oh my God, boom. And then we wake up and we're in bed. Like, how do I get back to that place? And that's where the kind of almost obsessional aspect of it comes, where you're like, dude, I'm going to bed early. Like, I'm having an early night tonight, because the places I can reach in my mind when I sleep far outweigh anything I can, well, not anything, but many of the experiences of the waking state. Actually, let me caveat that, because it sounds a bit like I'm saying it's escapist. Lucid dreaming is super, super fun, and it directly impacts a third of our life that we spend asleep. But its real benefits come in the 2/3 that we spend awake, because the things you can do in the lucid dream, like integrating your trauma, doing your spiritual practice, working with your inner child, don't just affect the dream, they affect the waking life. So I'm not saying it's an escapist practice at all. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a way of fully embracing your waking state.
One of the most important things that I have learned interviewing all of these high performance leaders is that clarity of mind is crucial to your success. And what good is clarity of mind without clarity of sound? Which is why today's podcast is sponsored by Rode. We across Golarami use exclusively Rode audio equipment in order to do all of our stuff. If you are an influencer, if you're just a person out there trying to make some good content for your stuff at home, wherever it is, Rode is by far the best audio partner we have ever had. We have been using their stuff for almost 5 years now. Has never let us down. Truly incredible company, especially with all of the other affordable things that you guys can get from them. Check out the link right down below and enjoy the rest of this podcast.
But yeah, great example of the handshake. That's it. Perfect.
Yeah, that was an easy, simple thing. I don't remember how long I had to keep it up. There was a lot of desire, and I know I'm sure with people that you've helped lucid dream, the more desire you have and the more, persistence and love of wanting to push this forward without pressure on yourself, it can happen quick. I mean, there are definitely people who are going to watch this and probably become lucid tonight. Just, they might not even, it happens a lot. I know they're just kind of,
definitely. Enthusiasm. Like if someone's watching this, then they fall asleep at night and they're like, whoa, imagine if I can do what he said was possible. Imagine if that sense of like childlike enthusiasm, that is the strongest lucid dreaming technique there is. I mean, you can go around looking at your hands all day and eventually it'll work, right? But if you can fall asleep tonight with that sense of, wow, what if I can access those deepest parts of my mind? That will get you lucid. So you're right. People will get lucid tonight just from listening to this.
Totally. I want to ask now about, because as you mentioned, right, we spend a third of our life asleep and it impacts the other 2/3 of our life. One aspect of lucid dreaming, one aspect that, let's say, of the spiritual practice that we love to touch on here, and we've had some great people on talk about this, is manifestation and manifesting what you want in life. Is there a practice, a way, a method that you have for, say, I want to make more money? That's a common one, right? Or find a dream job, or, how does that process work within a lucid dream? How do I set an intention to figure out how my brain, whatever it is that is controlling this, is going to help me in my waking life? What would you do to go about doing that?
So first of all, I'd like to make a comment on manifestation itself. Like, for example, the making money thing. If you are trying to manifest a goal of making money for you personally to help just yourself, it could work, but it's just a one-man army. But if you're manifesting a goal to make money to like start a charity, to help all beings, or to start an orphanage for kids or something like that, you've got like the backup of many, many more people. So the kind of idea of manifestation does have Buddhist roots, but it's also based on this idea of karma, cause and effect. And that if we're doing stuff for selfish means, it's going to be much harder to manifest than if we're doing stuff for philanthropic means. So let's say we want to make a big change to our waking life that will help all beings, right? That will help others, or help us be a kinder, more loving human being. The lucid dream state, from a Buddhist point of view, is said to be like a laboratory of enlightened wisdom, where you can rehearse the practices or the states of mind that eventually you will manifest into the waking state. So yes, right back from like 1,000 years ago in the dream yoga teachings of Tibet, it's used to practice what will then manifest in the waking state. The Toltecs from the Mexican shamanic tradition, they're even more direct about this. They say you dream it before you live it. And their main reason why they engage lucid dreaming practices, and of course, Carlos Castaneda was kind of into Toltec stuff. It's questionable whether he was actually doing the traditional stuff or whether he kind of created his own branch or whatever. But the reason the Toltecs were so interested in lucid dreaming was because if you were having non-lucid dreams, or you're completely out of control, you could be dreaming anything. And that means you are going to experience anything in the waking state. But if you can have some element of control over your dreams and choose what to dream about, then that will plant seeds which will sprout in the waking state. So absolutely, you can do this. I mean, one of the most simple techniques you can use is, again, to kind of see the lucid dream state as the hypnotic trance state. So in the same way as if the hypnotherapist took you to a deep state of hypnotic trance, and then, a professional soccer player like yourself, you could implant, at tomorrow's match, I am the highest manifestation of my soccer skill. At tomorrow's match, I am the highest manifestation of my soccer skill. Something like that, right? Really deep into the unconscious. Now, in a lucid dream, you can do a similar thing. In fact, just last week, I had a lucid dream, and it was really, really deep. I was literally free diving. You know how like the free divers drop really, really deep into the ocean?
Yeah, in water. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
yes.
But I was doing that in the dream just to kind of explore like how deep into the iceberg I could go. And I went deeper and deeper and deeper and through the different kind of layers of reality until it was this huge void, just this huge black expanse. And I was like, oh shit, this is the bottom of the iceberg. And it was this huge kind of black void. But in the void, there were these like almost like static charges of color, and from the color came form, and like there were words. I can't remember what they said, but like a word appeared, and then like a face appeared, and I realized like, whoa, this is like the holodeck. This is like the place of manifestation, and this stuff eventually becomes what I live my life as. So I thought, oh, whoa, I'm in this state. I've got to like do an affirmation for manifestation. And the one I used was actually from Ram Dass, the spiritual teacher. He had this term, or did have this term, and still does, of course. I am loving awareness. And I called out to the lucid dream, I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. So it's kind of 3 times with the intention this would like fully permeate my unconscious mind, would flow up through that iceberg of consciousness and then blossom into the waking state. Now, that was about 10 days ago. Can I say that I'm in a full state of loving awareness now? No, but I'm feeling pretty loved up and pretty aware. So who knows? Maybe it's still kind of sprouting, but you can really do that in the lucid dream state. Or you could go into the lucid dream and call out, I manifest the highest potential of my career path. Or a great one to do is to call out a question in the lucid dream. You can call out like, how can I be of most benefit in the lucid dream, and you'll get this response. Or just call out for manifestation, I am the highest potential of benefit. I am the highest potential of benefit. If you do that, you're going to see some effects in the waking state. And this is the cool thing about lucid dreaming. It's nothing to believe in. There's no like guru to worship or anything like that. Like, you do it and it either works, there's change the next day, or there's not. Like, especially if you're doing it with like fear, right? Fear of spiders or something. People are like, how do I know if it'll work? The next day you won't be scared of spiders. Like, if you've done a really powerful healing in the lucid dream, the next day you'll be able to hold a spider in your hand. And if you can't, it kind of hasn't worked. And maybe you need to do the lucid dream again. So there's nothing to believe in here. It's not kind of woo-woo. It sounds woo-woo, right? But it's not. It's actually kind of science-based.
Yeah, I think society has done us a disservice in making it seem woo-woo, but it couldn't be more practical. You immediately realize this. And even what's funny is, and I would say this, and I'm trying to think, I can't pull up a perfect example, but when I've done lucid dreams, or when I've had lucid dreams and done things within them with intent, so that person who feels that they have a fear of spiders and then wants to, eliminate that and goes into a lucid dream. What's interesting is that when it's successful, there's a certain sense of knowing. I would say that person isn't going to go then to the zoo and to go hold the tarantula and be like, am I going to work? They're already like, it's a knowing that is greater than a belief. It's, and so that's what makes it very practical. It is. And that's why I tend towards, other certain spiritual practices that have, a push towards a gnosis, in this relationship that you can have with the unconscious.
Absolutely.
It's so important. I want to go to something that I think even for beginners and people who are interested in this, I want to, some of the issues that I had in learning this, not just out-of-body experiences and lucid dreaming. When you go to sleep, you mentioned using the hypnagogic state in order. It can be very hard sometimes to not crest over into the unconsciousness, especially if you're late. Those people out there that drink or smoke weed or whatever it is that they do, can have a very big effect. And so one hack I could say that I've definitely found is that if I want to have a lucid dream, I think you did mention this earlier, if I go to bed fairly early where I'm tired but not exhausted, right? Everybody knows that feeling of exhausted. You put your head down and you're gone. Even if you want to lucid dream, sometimes, it's just, not going to happen. How do you... Could you even like zoom in a little bit on that process? I put my head down. When I want to lucid dream, I lay on my back. When I want to do any sort of practice, I lay on my back. That's what I found to be helpful for me to kind of slowly go through the states of going in. But could you break it down? My head hits the pillow. Maybe I'm awake. It's 10 this time, and I've decided I want to do this. What do I do now? And when I feel that, how do I recognize when I'm in, that state? And do I want to stay awake? I'll get to some of the, I don't know if you've heard of the term wild, wake-induced lucid dreaming. We'll touch on that after, but maybe just zoom in for a little bit and just give me that real process right there once my head hits the pillow on what I should be thinking and doing and saying.
Yeah, so it needs to begin before it's the nighttime. So the hypnagogic state, we are habitually used to seeing or experiencing the hypnagogic as a gateway into sleep. We close our eyes, we go through the hypnagogic, we feel that heaviness in our body, it feels like we're singing through the bed, we black out. We need to reprogram that. And the best way to reprogram it is not at nighttime, it's in the daytime. So what I suggest anybody who wants to get a solid lucid dreaming practice do is to practice something called yoga nidra or NSDR. So this is a form of lying down meditation in which you meditate within the hypnagogic state and you do it in the daytime. So many of the lucid dreaming techniques, especially wild that you just mentioned there, Awaken, Initiate, Awaken, Induced lucid dreaming, require the ability to maintain mindful awareness within the hypnagogic for extended periods of time. So if as soon as your head hits the pillow you black out, there are still lucid dreaming techniques available to you, but they're not the ones that engage the hypnagogic state. And so many of them do, whether it's the mild technique, the wild technique, hypnagogic affirmation, all of those require the ability to stay in the hypnagogic consciously while you do a visualization, say an affirmation, do a certain meditation, and then you choose to go, now I've finished that practice, I'm going to drop off to sleep. So the best training for that is yoga nidra or NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. So on all the workshops and retreats, every day we do at least one session of yoga nidra or NSDR. The other way to approach it is napping. If we fall asleep at the nighttime, we've had a whole day of awakeness. So we're usually tired. Maybe we've been training, we've been working. But the nap state is a great way to practice lucid dreaming. Number one, because you're not as fatigued as usual. You've only had half the level of fatigue because you've only been awake for half the day rather than a full day. Number two, when we nap, we don't follow the same sleep cycle as when we fall asleep at night. So when we fall asleep at night, we tend to go hypnagogic, light sleep, deep sleep, dream. Dreams come at the end of a 90 to 100-minute cycle. But when we nap, we go straight from hypnagogic into dream or hypnagogic, light sleep, dream. We don't go into deep, which means the napping state is a really good way to not only train the practices we'll do at night, but also to actually have full-blown lucid dreams in the daytime. And if you do, often the quality of awareness you can have in a lucid dream from a nap is far greater because, again, you're not tired. You're not completely tired as you would be if you went to sleep at midnight. So I'd say train in the daytime. Then back to your question about the nighttime. Yeah, we need to spend a lot of time in the hypnagogic state and try and fall asleep slowly. So in the Buddhist practices, there's like a whole raft of practices, especially for the hypnagogic, where you kind of watch the dissolution of the elements, which is actually the same process that happens at death. And it takes a long time. You'd want to spend like up to an hour falling asleep because you're watching the elements dissolve. And it's so difficult to do because we're so habitually programmed to go hypnagogic, oh, nice and cozy sleep. But one of the great tips we can do, exactly as you said, Will, lie on your back. Like if you lie on your back, for most people, it's not as comfortable as being kind of on your side or in the fetal position. So if I'm doing like spiritual practice, like lucid dreaming, I'll do the practice on my back. I'll go through the affirmation, do the visualization, whatever. And then when I'm ready to sleep, then I turn onto my side. If I go straight onto my side, it's like game over. It's as if I'm saying, not today, dude. It ain't happening. Of course it can, because there's dream-initiated lucid dreaming techniques you can do. But any of the falling asleep consciously ones, yeah. For me, I got to be on my back too.
Yeah.
So this is cool, man. So you got a full-on lucid dreaming practice.
Yeah, actually, like I said, it started off with an OBE practice, but no, I got deep, and that's kind of where my path kind of led me, because what happens is, of course, athletes have a certain, we have a certain, let's say, mentality. When I I take my training like I take any other training, and so it became serious. It's like, this is a game. At night is a game for me, and during the day I would practice what I would do, and it was very proper. And just to touch on, I would love to give people, there's so much, like you said, there's just so much you can do. But one of the coolest things, and you were mentioning it, I'd never heard of this Yoga Nidra or NSDR, so I'm really curious to kind of just check out some stuff. I'm aware of some of the Buddhist practices of what would happen at death, etc., but I haven't checked that out. One really cool thing, and that I loved with wake-induced lucid dreaming, or just keeping your mind aware and awake as you're falling through that hypnagogic state. I actually, several times, it's been a little while since I've tried to do it, went from the complete waking state to no loss of consciousness, straight into a dream. And when that happens, like I've not talked to too many people, I'm sure you've probably experienced this, but like, it is mind-blowing, because you just watch everything happen, and you realize how strange this is, that we kind of let ourselves just go unconscious, like with the sleep. Like, what is sleep? It really challenges you, because no loss of consciousness. I was awake, now I'm in a dream, and it was insane, and that it's so quick, too. It was, by so quick, 20, 25 minutes is my guess.
Absolutely. Yes. So that experience so this would be falling asleep consciously using either the wild technique or some other techniques. And this is where the transition from waking to hypnagogic to dream has no break in it. So you don't kind of fall asleep and then go, oh, there's a dream sign, check my hands, become lucid. You actually transition from the waking state, close your eyes, you're looking at the back of your eyelids for kind of 5 minutes, then the kind of images start to appear, then you're like, oh, I'm in the hypnagogic. You maintain everything in your body is saying fall asleep. But you've got to kind of maintain that balance between falling asleep and being too awake. You don't enter the hypnagogic. But if you can, like you said, take about 20, 25 minutes, which seems like freaking hours when you're in there. It feels like hours, but it's exactly right. Only about 20, 25 minutes if it's in the second half of the night. And then eventually you're in the hypnagogic, and you get the flashes of imagery and kind of weird hallucinations. Then after about 15, 20 minutes, it starts to solidify, and it'll be like all floaty, and then suddenly like there'll be a face, and you're like, whoa, it's starting to kind of almost like bread. I use this term of like dough to bread. So the dough is rising. And if you ever watch like bread bake, for the first 20 minutes or so, it's just liquid. And then after about, I've never thought about the timing, after about 20 minutes, you see the bubbles and the yeast start to set in, and then it rises. And suddenly it's gone from dough to bread quickly. There's like a quick changeover. And when you watch that, like you say, it's nuts because you see the formation of worlds. Because you've gone from like looking at the blackness in the back of your eyelids to seeing weird hallucinations of the hypnagogic, to then seeing solidity. And then suddenly this kind of critical mass forms and you're in this world where you have a body and things feel solid and it looks exactly like this, but the rules of physics don't apply. And sometimes when you do the falling asleep consciously, the first thing I do is I look behind me as if there was going to be a door going back into my mind, and it's called just space, or, just the land. You think, this is insane. The Buddha himself said, with our mind, we make the world. No truer has that statement been than when you fall asleep consciously. And you see how your brain, your mind interface can create a three-dimensional image hallucination of reality that is so convincing you believe it to be real. But of course, the lucid dreamer knows that it is not real. It is simply a hallucination. And it's so psychedelic. Anyone who's into like psychedelics and like all this stuff, big renaissance psychedelics, wow. If you want the cheapest, safest, like in many cases, deepest psychedelic experience, you do not need to go to the jungles of Amazon. You can go straight to the lucid dream state.
It's so true.
It's so true, and it's unbelievable. It's a limited amount. It's in all honesty, and I know it does take, everybody's different, but it's such a little commitment. A bit of desire, a few, keeping it into the forefront of your mind throughout the day, doing a little bit of practice here, like you said, a nap here. That's 20-something minutes. The return is so asymmetrical. It's so asymmetrical that it's just like, guys, like, get off TikTok for a second,
Music
wild.
to my ears, dude. Oh, dude,
Right?
something you said, Will, about, the mentality of professional athletes. Now, in my second book, Lucid Dreaming Made Easy, I had a chapter. They actually edited it out because they said it was too specific. It was called Black Belt Mindset. And it was using the metaphor of the black belt martial artist, of which I am and many friends are. And I found that a lot of people who were like high-level martial artists were also really good at lucid dreaming. Then I realized this isn't just a martial arts thing. This is any professional athlete, exactly as you said, because that mentality that is able to work for the sake of internal reward, not external reward, is something unique to kind of, high-level athletes in whatever field it is. And it takes a certain thing, a certain aspect of mind to be able to do that. And I think it's bi-directional. I think both like people who have a solid lucid dreaming practice can then apply that to the waking state to be really good at stuff in life,
right,
whatever it may be. And also people who are really good at very specific things that they do alone. Like the fact that, of course, soccer is a team sport, so it's slightly different, and I'm sure you play for the team, but also you play for yourself. Like I've seen your career, There must be a lot of your mind that's like, I'm doing this for me. I want to get to the top of my game. And that mentality, you apply that to lucid dreaming, the crossover is very strong. Oh, wait, sorry, Will. And also, do you know about the lucid dreaming sports studies that they've done?
I do not.
Where they, oh, dude, you could love this stuff.
I mean, I've used it some myself, but I don't know anything about any of this. No, please tell me.
Okay, so there's maybe a dozen of these studies. So like a lot of these studies, a lot of them come from Germany, from Heidelberg University, where they were studying the capacity of athletes to use lucid dream to increase their athletic performance. Now, the reason they studied athletes was because it's a really easy data point to measure. You can basically see, how many squats or press-ups can someone do in the waking state, teach them lucid dreaming, get them to do squats or press-ups in the lucid dream, and then see how many they can do the next day in the waking state. So really good you can get some good data points there, right? But also, I think athletes were good at it because of what we just said, the mentality. And also, it's just cool that they can get better in their sleep, right? And especially high level, especially Olympic athletes, every second counts. So if there's a practice that can give you just one extra second over your opponent, then it's worth doing. So I was part of one of these studies, actually a martial arts one. And they needed people who were into martial arts and into lucid dreaming. So I thought, dude, I'll do it. And it was really fun. We had to practice a certain kick sequence in the waking state, like a kickboxing kick sequence. Then we had to go into the lucid dream, practice the sequence in the lucid dream, like train in it. And then the next day, see if we could do it better, the same, or worse, right? 81.3% of the martial artists in this study got better at the kick sequence by training in the lucid dream. If that was 18%, I'd be telling you, over 80% got better. Now, unfortunately, I was actually in that kind of 19% that didn't get any better. And I don't know why, 'cause I did it. I got lucid. I did the kick sequence.
Interesting.
I felt like I was nailing it, but the next day, like, I completely flunked it. So I think that says more about my martial arts than my lucid dreaming. But yeah, there's loads of these studies to show you can increase your athletic performance by training in the lucid dream. They did studies on martial artists. They did one with this like weird coin flicking experiment where you had to like flick a coin into a pot, right? So less sport, but more kind of like skill. And so people training in the day had to flick a coin into a pot and they see how many times they can get it. Then they get lucid. And in their lucid dream, like rather than meeting God or integrating their trauma or having spiritual experience, all this thing they could do, they have to play this bloody game, right? But anyway, so in the lucid dream, they play this coin flicking game. And then they test them the next day. And there was remarkable improvement. People who were able to train in the lucid dream, they didn't get better a little bit. They got better a lot, like big marked increase in the coin toss experiment.
Yeah. I mean, I've utilized it unknowingly a couple times, because football will be on my mind and I might get lucid. And then I might say, well, we better, go score, right? And, I've got to go score, or I've got to go try this, or what about this kick? What about this free kick? Or how come I didn't do it? And I start solving problems in my head, right? And because you can work things out. There's zero pressure. You don't care about missing this shot, whatever, you're free. And being so free like that, you start testing things out, and then you realize, okay, and I did have a discussion with someone who was also a fighter. I believe they were a boxer. Now I cannot remember. And they did also talk about it. They would work a sequence out, boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and they were just doing that combo all the time. And then they got into the ring the next day, next few days, and he just said, like, I could do it. I could just do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is happening in non-lucid dreams too. Like, this is why, like, having non-lucid dreams about your athletic discipline or whatever you're practicing is brilliant too. Once you get lucid and then intentionally do it, then you're not only installing the memory from the day of practice, you're actually installing new memories, because once you become lucid and the prefrontal cortex becomes engaged, neuroplasticity switches back on. So in a non-lucid dream, neuroplasticity isn't engaged in nearly the same way as it is once you're lucid. But once you get lucid and you're like, oh, I'm dreaming, the act of saying I'm dreaming switches on the prefrontal cortex. That's literally the neurobiological definition of lucidity. Prefrontal cortex activation within the REM dreaming sleep state, right? So once that part of the brain switches on, with it comes neuroplasticity. So if in your lucid dreams, you spend the whole lucid dream like practicing penalties, and of course, because there's no time-space continuum, you can just whack out like 10 in like 100 in like 10 seconds. Bam, 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 bam. But the brain thinks you're actually doing that. So when you wake up the next day, as far as the brain is concerned, it has drilled in that neural pathway. You've just kicked 100 penalties in like 10 seconds or whatever it is. So if you hit a penalty in the waking state, the next day, I bet you would smash it. And dude, you are the perfect person to give this a shot. I mean, completely unscientific and just be us like talking about it, but dude, try it. I would so love to hear your experience.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny too, because, I have a little list of things. I have my own dream journals here, and I have a list of things that, like you said, it's so varied. It's so incredible what things you can do. But I do have that on there. And I know I haven't done it with the proper intention. One that's like, okay, I always find myself in this position on the field. Let me train this, and then let me go see what happens, right? So I'm definitely, I have it written down, and once it's in there to be written down, it will get done. So I will let you know.
Oh, dude, that would be so cool.
But I wanna shift only slightly to a question that gets debated a lot for some people here. And that is, and I know it's a loaded question, but is the dream world real? Meaning, is this a place that you went to that I can also go to? And, I've had shared dreams before, but What do you make of that? What have you discovered? What do studies show? What's going on here?
Okay, so first of all, to quote Morpheus from the first Matrix, right? What is real? Is real what you can taste, what you can smell, what you can feel? Then yes, this is real. Let's unpack this a little bit further. Like, lucid dreaming has been described by some theorists as a state of hyper-reality. And when you read that, you think like, this is hyperbole, right? How can it be hyper-reality? How can it be more real than the waking state? It's true though. Your experience of the waking state right now is limited by the 5 sense organs being filtered through the mind, right? I have a perforated eardrum, so I know that my experience of sound in the waking state is not 100%. I see that you're wearing spectacles. So your experience of vision in this waking state is less than 100% until you put on your spectacles, right? However, in the lucid dream state, you have perfect 20/20 vision, and I have perfect hearing. Why? Because we're not seeing through our eyes in the lucid dream, we're seeing through our mind. And I'm not hearing through my ears, I'm asleep, right? I'm hearing through my mind. So in many ways, lucid dreaming is not just real, it is realer than real. The experience of reality is heightened, not lessened. Now moving on to the second part of the question, could there be consensus reality within a lucid dream? Is it possible for me to go to a place in a lucid dream and for you to go to the same place? Then in the waking state, we can compare notes. Oh, dude, I was there, that kind of, place with the tree, or that house that looked like this. Is that possible? If we were talking about astral projection, out-of-body experiences, I'd say absolutely. Because in an out-of-body experience, you're not in Kansas anymore. A genuine OB, you are not dreaming, you are not in a lucid dream state, you are out, you're in some sort of collective either projection of reality or reality itself. In a lucid dream, though, the mind's flipping inwardly. So I'm inside a 3-dimensional projection of my own psychology. So I personally believe that in the lucid dream state, almost all of the time, we're in a closed circuit of our own psychology. However, it is possible that if you're lucid and I'm lucid, we can meet in some sort of, let's say my conscience here and your conscience is there and we're both lucid, we can kind of do that. And we can meet somewhere in the middle there. And in fact, just recently, I've been running a 7-week online course. And the last week, so week 6 to 7, we did a little we were looking at psychic capacity in the lucid dream and looking at all the science of it. And then just for fun, I ran a psychic experiment. So I said at some point in the next week, I'm going to get lucid and I'm going to project up into my lucid dream unconsciousness or my consciousness a image. And your job for the next week is to try and get lucid and see if you can find the image. And the next week they came and we spent a long time. Everyone's doing the raise hand feature on Zoom. Oh, was it this? Was it this? And then literally the last person, I would just go, okay, guys, we need to move on to the next part of the course. And raise hand feature came up. Okay, one last person. Claudia, I believe her name was. And she goes, yeah, I think I know it was. I was lucid and I called out and then this thing appeared, but I don't think it was that. And then I went into a room and it was just full of clocks. There were like 20, 30 clocks. I think the image you threw up was clock. And you see me on the recording, I'm like, no way. The image I threw up it was more specific than that. It was green-faced clock. But, clock was the image. I went, green-faced clock. The image is green-faced clock. And she got it. I was like, this is nuts. Now, it could have been anything. I was really strict with this. I made sure that I, didn't give them any idea what it could be, whether it's an object, whether it's a word, whether it's a concept. It could have been anything. And she got it. I think, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? I don't understand it. It's beyond my rational intellect. Maybe there are cleverer people than me who can explain it, but I can't. But I know that it's real. And I know that more than 15 years of teaching this stuff and 25 years of practicing this stuff, I have seen not hundreds, but dozens of examples of people being able to enter some sort of consensus reality within the lucid dream state, or examples of shared psychic phenomena through the lucid dream state. How it works, I don't know. The fact it does work, I know.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I tend to believe that that's got to be the case. I mean, I've had a few shared dreams, where you say, oh, I was dreaming about this, place or whatever, and the person, like, I was,
yeah,
like, wait a second, like, I was just dreaming about that, and like, you were there too, and like, and that's already like, how does that work? You know, I mean, we haven't quite mapped it out. We're going to get to that part here. I have a couple more questions at least on that, so we'll come back to that. But I want to now ask about. I mentioned that I've had a few precognitive dreams. Every time they happen, I've never asked for them to happen, which has been a case. I've not yet tried to say, I would like to know what's going to happen on this date at this time, and I've never done that, right? But what do you find? It's a two-part question. Precognitive dreams, could we have them? You know, could you ask for them? Have you tried this? And as well as the question of time travel, and maybe not time travel in the way that we might see in the Back to the Future movie, but have you ever gone back to, say, watch your birth, or go back to a time when you were 1 and just saying, what did it like when I tried to take my first steps? What was I thinking? What did it look like? You know, in theory, right, we should have that. We should have access to that, and being in a deeper state would make me believe that you could do it. You know, and I have some interesting, really early memories, but I've never tried to experience that in dreams. So I'm curious what you found.
Very cool question, Will. So I remember being at a neuroscience conference, maybe almost 20 years ago now. I was in my early 20s at King's College Medical School in London. And I remember one of the speakers came out on stage. He was talking about the neuroscientific proof of hypnosis. And he came out on stage and went, the jury is in. Hypnosis is real. And I'm here to tell you why. And I was like, this is going to be so freaking cool, right? And his talk was basically looking at the neuroscience of hypnosis, where they'd put people in fMRI scanners, so actual brain scanners. And then they did 3 main tests. One was on pain. So a person was hypnotized to believe that their arm was numb. And then they had a pin put through their arm, through that bit of the skin. And they saw not only subjectively that the person didn't experience pain, they didn't wince, they said they couldn't feel anything. But when they looked at their brain, which of course can't lie, the pain centers were not lit up. So not only was the person not experiencing pain subjectively, objectively their brain was not experiencing the pain of that. And the other thing he did was early childhood memory. They got people to describe the wallpaper on their walls that they had in their nursery when they were 1 or 2 years old, which they were able to corroborate with their parents, the whole kind of thing, to get proof of pre-verbal memory, essentially. So if that is possible through hypnosis, absolutely it is possible through lucid dreaming. Not only memories from your childhood, but if we want to go that far, memories from past lives too. Because the lucid dream state is gaining access not only to that iceberg of consciousness that represents this life, but also that iceberg of consciousness that represents the other lives we come from before. So absolutely that's possible. As far as your question around time, I actually had a lucid dream once where I met time. I made a dream plan to meet the personification or the manifestation of time. And I became lucid and I called out for time, and this dude appeared, totally normal looking dude, in his early 30s. And I was like, are you time? And he went, I'm time, jump on. And I was like, oh shit, what's going to happen? And I was like, jump on what? He didn't have a vehicle. And he went like this, and he went his back. So I jump on his back like a piggyback, like a child, right, piggybacking on his father or something. And so my arm's around him, and then he's speaking to me, my face there. And he starts explaining how time works. And he's basically moving forward. I don't know if you've seen the movie Interstellar, where the lead character is in this thing called the Tesseract, which is this how to explain? I don't know. I don't actually know what it is in the movie. It's some sort of device that allows one to move the kind of needle through the points in time. And as he was walking forward and I was piggybacking, he was showing me that the time-space continuum was dependent on us piggybacking on time. So time was moving at a certain pace. And if we were piggybacking on it, we would move at that same pace. But when he let me off, he continued moving forward to indicate that if we could somehow remove ourselves from the time-space continuum, time would continue, but we would stay fixed. Then I get back on his back. I mean, he said so much stuff. You know, when you wake up from a lucid dream, you try and write it all down. You're like, I'm trying to get all the info. But he was basically showing me how time worked. And then, and then at the time I was mourning, actually, my mum was dying. And I remember I asked him, I was like, how will it be when my mum dies? And he just turned to me again, my face was there, and he went, a new door will always open for you. When any door closes, a new one opens. And then he pointed at something, and there was some image of how death works. Again, I couldn't write it, I can't remember what it was, but he gave some image of how death works. So This is it. So, of course, this was just my mind in my lucid dream, probably based on my experiences or belief systems, whatever it was. But the thing he seemed to show was that the time-space continuum was dependent upon you piggybacking on time. And that there was actually a point where you could jump off time. And if you did, time travel would be possible. A bit like the guy in Interstellar using the Tesseract. Another little story I'd like to end this question on, because I don't know the answer to your question, so I'm just using these examples.
It's fascinating in any case. Yeah.
I once asked, so my Buddhist teacher, my refuge Lama, who I formally became a Buddhist with, it's like refuge is like kind of like taking like a christening, right? Where you formally become a Buddhist, you get a new name, they take a bit of your hair, all this stuff. He was called Akon Rinpoche, and he was well known as like the Lama who would never exaggerate. Like if he said something was okay, it was very, very good. You know, he was very kind of, solid like a mountain. And I asked him once about deja vu and time travel and prophetic dreaming and stuff like this. And I finished my question and he just kind of looked at me and I thought, oh, maybe he hasn't understood it. English is second language, something like that. So stupidly arrogant at me. Of course it understood. So I explained it again. So, deja vu, time travel. And he went, time? As if like, you still believe in time? My boy, there is nothing I can tell you if you still believe in time. And that was it. He just went, time. And it was as if like there were teachings he could give me, but I'm so kindergarten level in my spiritual practice. He was like, dude, you're not ready for this yet. But I just remember the look on his face, like time, as if like, that's kindergarten level, dude. You still believe in a concept of linear time? So who knows? That's always come to my mind when people ask those questions.
That is so fascinating because in my short studies, and nowhere near to the level that you've taken it, but at the very least, one of the biggest changes of my entire life is actually understanding that time isn't linear, just like you're saying. What a massive shift and change when you get that. I remember trying to describe it to a friend in the simple way, and everybody's probably seen some version of this example that I'm about to give, which is, of course, when we were at the start of this podcast, I was trying to explain to my friend, okay, so what time was it when we were at the beginning of this podcast? He was like, oh. I said, it was the present for us. So it was a present time for us. I said, now as we're talking here right now, I said, this is the present moment for us now. I said, in an hour or two, when we're talking, what time will it be? And he was like, it's the future. I'm like, no, it will be still the present time. You always and only experience everything in your life in the present time. And so what time it was, 50 years ago, what is the difference between that time and this time right here, right? If it's this giant present moment. And then that really starts you down a rabbit hole, and it should. And it should start to change. What it did for me is I started to question what was possible, because we usually use time to measure what's possible within a life, within a week, within a day. And then when you start kind of going, I don't know about this, there needs to be another classification for what's going on here. I started to look at things as energy, right? I started to look at things as potentially, maybe there's a way that it's the energy I put into it, and not necessarily the time frame, right? Because you can pack a whole lot of energy into one day. If your focus is high, if your awareness is high, if you've got everything within your body, you can pack a whole lot of energy in. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll take you a year to do so. It doesn't have to, right? And so that started making me question all sorts of things. And that opened up a whole world of dreaming and stuff to me, and also out-of-body experiences, just because I stopped looking at the world as far as time. And it also took away just a giant, I have a very, very low anxiety. I don't have it. I've done actually some tests, and I test way, way low on the neurotic scale, almost like I'm dead, right? But at the very least, I was just like, well, it just kind of let go. Why am I rushing? Where are you rushing to? I still have a desire to do all the things that I want to do, but not within this confine of time, because it seems like it's a limit. Right. And so it was just a very strange way of me getting off of that train, kind of, to be like, I don't know if I want to measure everything by this anymore.
I think that's brilliant. I think belief in linear time is one of the greatest limitations we have. And also belief from a Buddhist point of view in one life, this kind of one life thing. Whereas actually, this is not our first rodeo. We've been doing this stuff a long time. And of course, we want to live as full of lives as we can. But to have this idea that that it ends and that's it. And then this sense of failure that I wasn't able to complete everything I wanted to do, rather than we are born into a place where we continue the journey that we've had from last time. Yeah. Also, Will, as you were speaking there, you made me think of something, which is anyone who's had an out of body experience, or in my experience, is forced in many cases to reevaluate time. Because whereas a lucid dream, they've actually done tests on this, where you get lucid, you flick your eyes to tell the sleep scientist that you're in there, and then you estimate 5 minutes in time, 10 minutes in time. Time in a lucid dream is pretty much relative to waking state time. There's not kind of big time stretches. Why? Because prefrontal cortex is activated. So your experience of kind of self and how you expand in it, you go through time is the same, right? However, out of body experiences, man, I remember I had one so long that in the state, I remember thinking, this is when I was working as an actor, right, in my kind of early 20s. And I remember thinking, I'm going to get sacked from the theater job because it must be like 11 o'clock in the morning now, and I've overslept. I've been in here hours. And I know that I'd woken up at like 6 a.m., did these certain energy meditations to get the energy body going, going through the hypnagogic, done the exit technique. So classic induced out-of-body experience.
Sure.
And I'd been there for so many hours that I thought I was going to be late for work. I remember consciously thinking that. When I came out of the state, although it took me almost 2 hours to write it down, the experience I'd had and the things I'd met and the things that I'd done, it had only been about 20 to 25 minutes. It was like almost 5:30 and I'd just dropped in at 5. I was like, whoa, that's less than half an hour. Insane. And you think, okay, well, that is without doubt. The fact it took me so long to write down, that was my proof. I was like, wait, the data that I've got from that 25-minute experience is taking me almost 2 hours to write down. How do you square that? Like, how did and it was a linear narrative of, okay, I land in this space, because it was weird. I was in like a proper like locale 3, like different dimension of reality. And people were asking me like how I got there. And I was like, oh God, they're like acknowledging me. This is nuts. And I was like, what do you mean how I get here? And they were like, you're in the place in between. And I was like, oh God, it was like scary OBE.
Yeah.
And I kind of wished I was in a lucid dream. And of course, you're in there doing hand checks to think maybe I'm in a lucid dream. Hand checks aren't working because you're not in a lucid dream. The brain's not activating. Time is out the window because you're not in a lucid dream. Like you try and fly and stuff, you can't because you're in an objective reality, not like a lucid dream. You know, this was full on 100% OBE. But after that experience, I was like, this time thing, man. Like, I get what Akhund Rinpoche meant when he was like, time, what's that?
Exactly. I've had so many, and I would go down this whole. I want to ask about one other thing. If you got time for one more question,
sure.
Because I would love to go down. As a matter of fact, all right, this last two, and they'll be good. So you just mentioned a bunch of things that you did to do OBEs. I learned my OBE practice from essentially two people: Robert Monroe in all of his books and the Gateway programs and things like this, and as well as Astral Dynamics by Robert Bruce. I'm not sure if you those two books. Yeah, big book. Tremendous author. He just passed away a little while ago. His son has now taken over. Yeah, maybe within this last year, a few months even. So his son is taking up everything and really pushing it. And so I've actually, we've reached out, but it made it into a science, which is also something I know for people who, if you're still here with us, we've gone for an hour now and you're probably interested in watching this. If you're thinking that it's woo-woo in the sense that there aren't people out there that treat this like a science, you are very mistaken. So many people have documented, diagrammed, mapped out. This whole process is
release CIA statements. Obama's administration released those. If you put CIA plus, in fact, Googled it, CIA plus Stargate program, you'll be directed to the CIA website, not an external, their website. You can download a PDF where you've got some CIA agent trying the hell to work out what happened when he had his first OB out-of-body experience from the 70s. You're like, this is nuts. Yeah, so like you say, it's there, right?
It's totally there. And funny enough, that one of those CIA documents where they went to go to the Gateway program, we've had on Tom Campbell. I'm not sure if you know Tom Campbell is. Yes, my big toe, Tom Campbell. So Tom has come on several times, and I asked him about it too. I said, did you ever see the CIA thing? Because that guy was probably there, like when you were there, helping Robert Monroe. And he was pretty dismissive of
the CIA guy. He was like, he did a good job. I think Tom was just like, because Tom, he's a very smart guy, you know, he was dismissive of how he said, nah, that was his experience of how, and he did a good job in trying to lay it out. But I feel like Tom actually, like, he could do it better, or that he's done it.
Oh, totally. I mean, the cool thing about that document is that it's this like CIA dude with like not into spirituality, something, trying to work out what the heck just happened to him. And I think that's why it's such an authentic document, because he has this caveat at the beginning where he goes like, he's trying to explain to his superiors how he's going to try to avoid stepping into spiritual realms, but it may be unavoidable. Yeah, dude, it's freaking unavoidable because you just went to a spiritual realm.
Yeah. So then, we just touched on actually one of the things, but my other then would be, could you kind of just give just a little primer for someone if they wanted to delve into that world, the OBE world? How would you get them to do that?
So, like you said, Monroe Institute, sorry, I thought it was called Monroe Academy. Monroe Institute is really cool. I think they're in North Carolina or somewhere like that. They've also got
Virginia,
a big...
actually.
Oh, Virginia, sorry, yes.
Yes.
They've also got a big presence in the UK and Europe. So they were set up by Robert Monroe, the author of Experience Out of the Body, which is like the classic.
A few other,
Yeah, it's so many others, yeah. They're like classic kind of out-of-body experience manuals. And they have a pretty scientific, rigorous approach to giving people the ability to separate from their gross corporeal form. And you can kind of learn this in the same way as you can learn lucid dreaming, you can learn this. So Monroe... really worth checking out. Also, my former wife called Jade Shaw, she teaches people out-of-body experience. She trained with Monroe as well as some other places too. She's really cool if you want, maybe less scientific, but maybe more accessible than Jade Shaw. She's really cool to check out. I think, everyone should learn lucid dreaming because it's so accessible. It allows you to kind of lock into your nighttime and make profound changes to your psychology and spiritual essence while you sleep. Brilliant work. And also, people should learn out-of-body experience because whereas you can have dozens of lucid dreams and continue it as a whole process, just to have one experience of your sense of self separating from your physical body and being able to look back at it, there's life before and life after. Because so much of our suffering in this life is based upon our attachment to this meat suit, this gross corporeal form that we think is us. People insult it, so we get hurt. It gets ill, so we think there's something wrong with us. It dies and we mourn. If you have just one out-of-body experience and know beyond doubt that you are more than your physical body, so much of life's suffering can be recalibrated. I'm not saying removed, but at least recalibrated, because you have proof that you are not limited to this gross corporeal form. You are habitually limited to it, but not exclusively. And with certain practices, you can loosen the glue that sticks your astral body or your chi body, whatever you want to talk it, however you want to refer to it, to this physical body. And if you can loosen that glue with enough sufficiency, children, I think, can do it naturally because their glue hasn't yet solidified, it hasn't yet set. So as you said, you had so many out-of-body experiences as a kid, no wonder. But as adults, we can kind of loosen that glue and shift our astral body out of the physical body. Do that just once, life will change forever.
So true. So true. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, that there's definitely a time before and a time after, because I cannot tell you I should call it a high, that once I first got out, how long that high lasted. I mean, I feel like I was living life and doing everything else, but every once in a while it would pop in my head like, did that really, was that, I cannot believe it's real, And when you do it, when I induced it to happen and really understood the process and saw and looked back and got out and, went around, it's just like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I thought it was bullshit. Like my first out-of-body experience, I turned up at this guy's workshop because I was writing a chapter in my first book about how out-of-body experiences were not real and they were simply misinterpreted lucid dreams, right? I was like, oh, come on, you're just lucid but not lucid enough, so you think you've actually journeyed to this place. I turned up at this dude's workshop, right? And then in the middle of the day, it's just before lunch, so let's say like 12:30, midday, something like that. So I'm not tired. I'm definitely not placebo affecting on him because I think he's full of shit, right? So I'm not I haven't drunk the Kool-Aid. And we do this practice. We're sitting in his front room. He's a well-known teacher now, but back then he was doing them in his like living room in his house, right? And he says, this is an exercise. This won't give you an out-of-body experience. This is just like a preparation. But if you do this at night, then it might lead to it. So we're doing this thing, and he's going through this kind of process where you're kind of moving the energy up and down, up and down, up and down, faster, 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 faster. Then he goes, stop. And everything that is me shifted out of my body, not by much, by about 2 inches. And it went up from the head, up from the legs. And I know it went up from the head because we were in a circle. And I could now see above the person's head sitting in front of me because they were the same height. Now I could see above them. And it 5 seconds max, right? And I freaked. I go into his kitchen and I'm there like looking around, and I think he's put something in my tea or my water. I start telling myself this story. Oh shit, he doesn't like the fact that I think it's bullshit. He thinks I've come here to like show him up. He's trying to give me some weird experience. He puts psychedelics in my water or something. Classic denial, straight into denial. I could not believe it. Then that night, it was like a 24-hour sleepover workshop. I then had another 2 that night. And by the morning, I was like, dude, I'm rewriting that chapter. This is real. This is not a lucid dream. By that time, I'd had over 500 lucid dreams. I knew the state well. And I was like, this is not a lucid dream. I don't know what the hell it is. I can't explain it, but it ain't a lucid dream. I was awake. It was like the middle of the day.
That's exactly. And my first proper one was right in the middle of the day after training in a nap. Sun was out, just everything, and it's just odd things can happen obviously in that state, but it's just truly, I do also remember when I hadn't harnessed that skill yet, reading about people who, just like yourself, who are like, lucid dreams are just, no, like it's just a lucid dream. And I'm like, now that I've done that, guys, I've done both. I don't know what to tell you, but if you're not having this feeling after it, you're probably not there because you've not had it yet, because that's another one, but listen, this has been absolutely incredible. I had no idea I had some idea where our discussion would go, but I did not know it would cover this so well, and then you'd be able to convey all this so well. And so we've definitely got to do this again.
Yeah, this is great. We could talk for another hour, man. I mean, this is so much fun.
Easily. I know. Yeah, I think. We'll talk about this right after and right off camera. But where do you want us to send people? I know you've got a bunch of books. We'll link to everything that you've done, and I'm sure you have workshops and stuff like this. But is there a central site you want us to send people?
Yeah, sure. So just my website, charliemorley.com. You'll find all my stuff there. I'm on Instagram too. Apparently, if you just put Charlie plus Lucid into Google, all my stuff comes up too. So you don't even need to remember my last name. Just Charlie Lucid.
Well, perfect. Listen, we will do this again 100%. We'll link to everything. Guys, check out everything. Start this today. No need to wait. If you've enjoyed it and you've listened all this far, just get going. Trust me, it is very much worth it if you can't tell by the enthusiasm we both have for this subject. So, Charlie, thanks again, and we will see you soon, man.
Will, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.